All right. Just this is Xavier again, and we are here over at Palmanos, and we are doing an interview with the director of Coby Dance.
Coby Projects.
Coby Projects. And just introduce yourself. And
Hi, I am Nikki, and I am the artistic director and founder of Coby Project.
Coby Project has been along. How long now?
We are 1 year in as of right now.
1 year in. Fantastic. And what tell me about Coby Dance Project.
Basically, it is an improvisational company. We explore live performance, as well as I am getting ready to set off into the site-specific world and really work on dance for film also. So I'm really trying to explore improv from a variety of perspectives.
Okay. What kind of site-specific things have crossed your mind? Places that you find interest or inspiration?
Well, I started off playing actually this park that is very meaningful to one of my best friends. He's lived in Kissimmee his entire life, and there's a park that's behind his house. It's huge, and we always used to just kind of go there and hang out. And one of the dancers, Ivan, and I decided one day, why not just go out there and start playing? And we set up a tripod, and nature is a really big thing for me. So that's where I wanted to sort of get my feet wet and start playing with that idea of site-specific movement. But now transitioning into a new perspective, I'm going to really start playing with public and private spaces and exploring space in an inefficient manner. So my next project is instrumental. Hold on, let me make sure I get this right. Instrumental rationality, and it's exploring, looking at a space, talking about what inefficiency means, because we're in a world where everything is structured to be efficient. Get from point A to point B as fast as you can and make the most money that you can. Well, why not explore space from a totally different perspective? And here we have a sidewalk that's meant to take you from here to there without messing up grass or, keeping everything nice and pristine. Well, why do we have to use that space? How can we really explore it from a totally different perspective? Why not? Why can't you crawl? Why can't you roll? Why can't you, stomp around in the grass? So I really want to start exploring different things from a sort of, off vantage point compared to, as the public would perceive it.
Okay. What other places do you think are inefficient? Uses of space.
Well, I personally think any public space where you're really sort of structured to follow a certain path, like roads, sidewalks, parking garages. Really, I think I'm drawn to a lot of sort of. Concrete is a big thing for me. I don't know what it is. I'm very drawn to that just because to me, while it's made of different, natural things, to me it's just very unnatural and it feels very cold. And I want to sort of bring life and warmth into those, and that's really, where I'm kind of trying to explore it from an inefficient perspective.
Okay.
Really playing with bringing life and breath into something that's very stoic and cold.
Okay. What other projects are you working on? Have you worked on?
Well, we just completed Chance, a haphazard course of events, and that was a completely improv show. And it started off with audience members selecting a letter and a number at random. They had no idea what it represented. And we tallied them, and each letter was attached to a song, and each number was attached to a concept. So as we were tallying them, they didn't even realize that they were selecting our soundtrack and our concepts. And then we presented it to everybody. This is what our top 8, songs and our top 8 concepts, and we cast it at random. So it was really inspired by Merce Cunningham's idea of Chance, and we just took it to a whole nother level.
Did you tell them this before or after you were done presenting the?
When they first walked in, they hadn't. The press release obviously gave an inkling that there was some audience interaction. We didn't really want to go into depth because I didn't want it to become contrived. I didn't want them to come in with the mindset of we are going to vote to set up whatever. So we didn't tell them until they had already voted for letters and numbers, and then we had tallied, and then we said, hey, when you came in, this is actually what you were doing. What you didn't even realize it. So from there, each concept, some of them had no audience interaction, and then some of them actually had where they would call out in the middle of the piece, where we played with the idea of time.
Oh, wow.
And it was, we started off moving, and they could yell out at random play, stop, fast forward, rewind, pause, all these things, and we just listened to them. And some people who knew names, they would say, like, Ivan, stop, Nikki, fast forward. So they were instrumental in creating the entire show. And it was really the first time that our group had explored complete improv of, we didn't even know who was dancing and what piece, what the music was going to be, what our concepts were. I mean, we really sort of, just went in there with a couple of ideas, and then they helped us develop the rest and shape it.
So vaguely structured, but
yeah, vaguely
still
structured.
extreme
So
improvisation.
because really with improv, there has to be rules in order for you to create. We don't want it to be like drowning in rules, but there was a basic structure, otherwise it would be absolute chaos. So we had to have something in place, and the easiest way to do that was to have 27 pieces of potential music and 12 concepts.
Wow.
And from there, it all narrowed down, and we were able to just pair it up, and we cast it at random. So we would just draw random names. We said, oh, well, this concept could have 4 people. Okay, so draw 4 names. Here are the 4 dancers for this. We did kind of allow, if a dancer was like, I don't feel comfortable with this concept, I don't feel like I'm going to be able to portray it accurately, or I don't feel strong on this, we go, okay, put it back in, draw another random name. So we really kind of left it up to chance of what was going to happen, but we did allow artists to kind of vocalize, like, I don't feel comfortable with this, or, like, I'm not ready to do this one, because we had one exercise in particular, cross hemispherics, where we played with crossing the different planes of the body with movement, and some of the dancers were like, I don't really feel comfortable with it, whereas others were like, yeah, I'm ready to go, I can do this. So we allowed a little bit of flexibility in there just because it's a performance, and we want to make sure that, it still goes smoothly, but we wanted to still leave the element of chance in there.
Now, was there a defining end, or was it just like, all right, the song's over, so...
Well, the song was, we always make sure, in our rehearsals, we go from, beginning to end, and we make sure that there's a beginning start to it, and that we have to wrap up whatever our concept is by the end.
Okay.
So we practiced for, 6 months of just practicing those different exercises with random casting. And I'm big on collaboration, so I ask my dancers, I'll text them like the day before and be like, hey, come in with a concept, or come in with a new piece of music, or, come in with an exercise for us to work on, because for me, creating is not, I don't want it to be that I'm dictating. That's not improv. And that's not, to me, art requires collaboration, and improvisation requires all of us working together. It's about communication, and if we don't communicate, and I'm not open to that, then it's going to be stagnant. It's going to go nowhere. So I'm really big on having artists bring in concepts. So when we're practicing, we're making sure that we understand this is the story we're telling. It has to have a definitive beginning, middle, and end, just like any story would, a plot diagram. That's always my analogy. Think of a plot diagram. You have to have your intro, you have to have something that you're saying, and how are you going to conclude it?
Okay. And so how many concepts you used? You used 4 concepts?
There was a potential 12, and we narrowed it down to 8.
Narrowed it down to 8.
Yeah, so then we did 4 at the beginning, a brief intermission, and then 4. And then we decided at the end, hey, why don't we all just do a group piece? And we went in with absolute no concept, and I was just like, here's this piece of music, put it on, and this is our finale.
Do you recall the concepts that you used?
A couple cross hemispherics did get picked. We had, because the 2 shows were totally different.
Of course.
So one show had cross hemispherics. We had fears, which one of the dancers brought in, and each people from the audience wrote down a fear that they had, and they put it in, and then they had to play with it. And the one that they got was spiders, and it actually ended up being really cool. They played, the dancers who got it, I was super excited about it. I'm glad they videotaped it. So there was fears. We did picture in motion, which was art, and a person in the audience just flipped to a random piece of artwork in an art book, and they looked at the different lines, they looked at texture, they looked at content, and then they explored it from there and created a piece. What else? Hold on, I'm trying to remember. We did lines, which was we had a stack of different books ranging anywhere from like Sylvia Plath to like Winnie the Pooh. And again, an audience member would flip through, and we kind of give them a little bit of time where they would have like 30 seconds. So if they flipped to something and it was like the cow moves and they were like, oh, let me pick something different, they could. But we had one the second day, and the person picked, what was it? It was like a full cart of donkeys. And that was the line, and that's what they had to play with. And I talked before they went on, I was like, don't think literal. You can interpret it literal, but think of all the many different interpretations that you could have of the idea of foal, the idea of a cart, the idea of a donkey. Don't look at it just like literally, and sort of explore it from different areas. What were some of the other ones that we had? Oh, time was one that was selected, the play, the stop, all of those.
Yeah. That's interesting to work with time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really was, and that kind of came from an initial vision that Dario was doing with Clockworks, and which was a production we were supposed to be involved in, and we ended up, right now it's on hiatus, but we played a lot with that idea of movement in time and how it is sort of an illusion. And we used that exercise to begin off with it, and I was like, why don't we just take this and develop it even farther? So that's what we did in the audience. We were kind of hesitant, like, oh my gosh, is the audience going to feel comfortable shouting out in the middle of a piece? Because typically you go to a dance performance and you sit down and you just observe, and you get up and you go. But we wanted it to have that sort of like, you're a part of it just as much as we're a part of it. And we had one little girl there who was yelling things out. I mean, she must have been under the age of 10. And I mean, she would like yell out dancers' names because we told them what who was cast right before we went on. And she would yell out people's names, and so-and-so stop, so-and-so pause, so-and-so fast forward. So we were actually fairly floored at the amount of interaction we got from audience members who, typically go to a dance show, and like I said, they just sit and watch. So that one was a really fun one to play with, and it actually was one of the stronger pieces.
So now, did you put all of these different motivators for movement together? Or was it like, this is time, you're going to do time? Or this is like, we're going to do this, lines and time and space and direction or whatever? You put that all in one?
We did separate pieces. So it had the feel of a regular show, but we still kept it flowing. And what I did was, one of the big things, it was a debate that we all had, was, do we stop in between each piece and do it, or do we start at the very beginning before you even start show and get the audience input then, minus the ones that require calling out, and then so the show flows. And that was something we debated on, and we were like, let's keep the flow of the show, but we wanted to still have that feel of a regular performance, because not everyone understands improv, and not everyone really appreciates it or gets that part of improv is that everything isn't always going to go right. There's maybe times where you're like, I'm going to do this, and then you go and do it, and you're like, that was not as cool as I thought it was going to be, or